Hi guys, it's your host Joshua Munns here from Recovery Talks 24/7, and I just want to say thank you so much for all the listeners and all the followers on the Spotify platform for listening to my podcast. And I just want to say a massive thank you to we have a lovely guest called Jen that's come on with us today, and she's going to be sharing her story of how she coped and how she coped with somebody that was an addict. And we interviewed Ian, if you can remember, and we had a brilliant chat with him and understood about what he went through, how he recovered through it, and where he was today. And what an absolute privilege it was to interview Ian and see how well he's doing. And I just thought to myself, it would be amazing to get his partner on and to kind of give her side of the story and how she coped, because I think it's really important. So, Jen, thank you so much for coming on today. I
You're
really appreciate
welcome.
it. It's amazing to actually see you in person, and you must be so proud of Ian as well and how far he's come.
I'm so
'Cause,
proud. So
yeah,
proud.
and his story is, it's touching many lives out there, and may it long continue to be a blessing to other people out there as well. So, Jen, this is about you today, and we just want to know more about how you went through things and how you cope with things, because it's quite a big thing out there. With There's a lot of partners
Yeah.
that don't know how to cope with things. So can you just kind of like tell us a bit about yourself and how you met your partner, so we can kind of talk about a bit of a love story? How did you meet?
So in 2019 we met at our workplace. I worked in the barber shop in the shopping centre, and Ian was the security guard of the shopping centre. We were friends for a while, weren't we? We were just friends, and COVID hit, and we kind of like lost contact, didn't we? So obviously it was in lockdown and stuff like that. I couldn't work because obviously I was a hairdresser. So when I went back to work in 2020, I happened to see Ian again, and I then left my job. And just started working from home as a hairdresser, just because of lockdown and COVID rules. It was really hard. So then we lost touch, never really spoke until one day he dropped me a message and was like, can I take you on a date? And I was like, yeah.
Ship sailed.
Oh, well, I first said like, no, ship sailed, not interested. And then he did a little sweet talk. And then we went on a date a week later, was it?
Yeah, pretty
About
much.
a week later, and then the rest is history. We were in a relationship, and we were really happy, weren't we? Really happy.
That's amazing.
We had a good few months, and then I fell pregnant with Albie, our son, who is now 19 months old. And then that's when everything started to go downhill. That's when I noticed like odd behaviours, like in and out of jobs all the time, and I would like question him on it, but he wasn't telling me the truth, and I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And he must have had about 5 or 6 jobs in like a short space of time. I was having to work like 2 jobs because I was pregnant. I've got a daughter as well, who is 9, and he just changed. Like when we had our first scan, he was like he couldn't talk because of past trauma that he's been through, and he was just acting very strangely. So the whole way through the pregnancy, it was like a bit of a roller coaster, like up and down, and I still didn't know really what was wrong until we had Albie. Albie was premature. He was in intensive care for the first 7 days of his life. And it was a really stressful time for us both, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I actually feel like we were so far apart in our relationship that when Albie was born, we kind of went back together. And it kind of made us a bit closer, didn't it? Because we only kind of had each other in that situation.
So with you, obviously with that story then as well. So going back to when you was just explaining then, beautiful little love story there. Really cute. Everyone loves a nice little cute little love story. So things are going really great. You've met the love of your life. You both are falling in love. Everything's going great. And that's how all relationships should be, right?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, as a partner that you've started to notice some things are wrong.
Yeah.
So you've shared with us there was little things that were happening.
Yeah.
So obviously multiple jobs. You just couldn't put your finger on it, and it must have been difficult because you must have been asking a lot of people, like, I don't know what's going on, something's not right.
I
But
didn't. Do you know
sometimes
what?
people just don't know the
I didn't.
answers. Oh, really?
I only spoke to one person who is my really good friend, and I kept saying to her like, "There's something, but like, there's no money." He's like, he goes out and he doesn't come home, turns his phone off. He's in and out of jobs. He's acting strangely. Like, Ian's got ADHD, and this is how I clicked on. So Ian's got ADHD, and when he was on drugs, when I didn't know, he changed as a person. Like, his behaviour was so calm, and his tone of voice would change.
Wow.
And I
Okay.
kept noticing this pattern, and then I was like, "You're on drugs."
Wow. So you've already clocked on then.
Yeah.
So how did Ian's addiction impact now your relationship in your daily life? So you've obviously clocked on now. There's something going wrong. You
Yeah.
know it's drugs. So how did that impact your relationship and your daily life?
Massively. To start off with, I didn't actually tell him that I knew because I
Okay.
didn't want to believe it. It wasn't until somebody in the village told me what he was doing, and I was like, I knew it.
Wow. So it started to impact you in
Yeah.
your relationship
Yeah,
together
because
as well. It must have been.
he'd go well, not missing, but he'd just go off, and his phone would go off. I wouldn't know where he was. People would tell me that they'd seen him wasted in the village. People of my friends in the village were talking about it, and I was a bit like, gosh, I've been so blind. I just truly believe I just didn't want to believe it was happening because we've
Yeah.
got this beautiful baby. You know, you're meant to be in your era, aren't you? It's meant to be the happiest time of your life, but it wasn't. It was awful. It was really, really bad.
So, when you was going through that time, so like you said, quite a powerful word, it was awful.
Yeah.
It was a bad time of your life. And you must have kind of struggled to kind of cope with it. So did you kind of have any sort of support system around you at all, like from your friends, your families or anything, or did you just
I
do it by
didn't tell
yourself?
anybody. The only person I
Wow.
told was that one friend.
Wow. So how did you cope through it? What was your coping mechanism?
I think mentally I just switched off from it.
Hmm.
I kind of tried to pretend that it wasn't happening until obviously Albie was a little bit older, like a few weeks old, wasn't he? And I just turned around to him and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, drugs were first. Yeah. Like, drugs were number one, and then we were the second. And we were falling in debt. You know, he couldn't be around Albie or my daughter. It was very hard. And then my parents started to notice something. Like, when they were around us, they could tell that there was something between me and him. Like, we weren't like sitting closely to each other, or we weren't like holding hands. I still don't now, mate. You know, you could tell. You know, when you look at a relationship, you can tell when there's something wrong. And it was like a red flashing beacon above us that there was a massive problem going on. Massive problem. Then I confided in my parents. And then at this point, my mum was like, he needs to leave because you and the children are in danger. So yeah, that's the point when I said, you got to go.
And that must have been really hard for you, Jen.
Yeah.
Obviously, like you said, you've had a beautiful, beautiful child.
Yeah.
Like you said at the beginning, you thought this was it. This is life now. I'm set up for life and found the love of my life. And now you're in this moment where even your own parents have kind of said he needs to leave.
Yeah.
And it must have been so hard.
It
And there's
was.
probably listeners out there as well that are going through exactly the same thing and they don't know what to do.
No.
They don't know how to cope with it. And like you said, I don't know how you done it, through your own strength, because it must have been really hard. I definitely encourage, obviously, and you'd probably agree, if you did reach out to somebody or did confide in someone that may have had knowledge about the whole drug scene and recovery and how they can get help, I'm sure that probably would have put your mind at ease a little bit.
Yeah, so after Ian had left, when did you leave? About February time, was it last year?
Yeah.
About February time. He was like in and out, like between he'd gone somewhere, then he'd had to come back, then he'd gone somewhere else, then he had to come back because he had nowhere to go. I reached out to a friend of mine who works in rehabilitation at the Carpenter's Arms. I've been friends with him for 10 years. And I actually rang him and I was like, I need you to help me. Like, this is to the point now where it's either life or death. He's going to kill himself. And it was him that said, you need to get him to put an application form in to get him in here. And it was at that point then that I was like, wow, I can't actually believe how serious this is.
Yeah. Because you had to come to a realization, isn't it? It must have been hard to sit there and go, this has to be done.
Yeah.
And he needs help.
Massively.
So you've reached out to someone now, and I know this person that you reached out to, he's a lovely guy. And so he's helped you with this application. He's got his application through now. So how did you kind of support your partner through this decision? Was this something that you put onto him, or did he just kind of make that decision to kind of go, I need help?
So I was kind of saying to him, so at this point you've gone to your dad's, haven't you, in Swansea? And I was saying to him, at this point he was actually opening up to me on message. He was like saying, do you know what, actually I think I do have a problem. And he was like, I need help. And that's when I was like, you need to go to rehab. Like, we tried Turning Point, we'd done Turning Point, and we got him in contact with them, and that just wasn't working at all. And I was like, you need professional, serious help. Like, there's just no other way now. You've been to the doctors, but it just wasn't working. Just wasn't working. So I kind not pushed him, but I really encouraged him because I knew deep down that is what he needed.
Yeah. And do you know what, Jen? I think it's really quite important as well, because probably there's, you've probably heard of stories where people have pushed people to get their help and they just don't, they don't want it, So luckily you've pushed Ian to go get the help, and he's actually gone, do you know what, I do need it, and he's seen it and he realised it. And I think it's really hard sometimes for a lot of people where they try and push people to get help and it just never works out, and it must be really,
they don't want the help.
I
think for Ian, like, at one point he was living in like somebody's shed, because I couldn't have him at the house because of how bad the drugs were. I couldn't put the children at risk. And he was living in someone's shed, and it was all the guilt tripping and, I can't believe you're doing this to me. But I'm glad that I did do that to him, because he needed to realise what rock bottom was. As horrible as that is, and it absolutely broke me. Like, I don't even know how I had the strength to do it, but I knew I had to protect the children and for him.
And I think it's quite important that you shared it like that, because sometimes these things have to happen. As an addict from myself, I can relate to that. I had that from my own mother that done that to me, and she had to make the decision, and it was really painful. And I can imagine the pain that you went through, especially with having your family setting your child, and then all of a sudden it's all going wrong. It must have been really hard. So let's move on then with the whole journey. So what challenges did you kind of face together during the recovery process? So he's now in Carpenter's Arms. Was there any sort of challenges you was going through? I'm sure, obviously, you've got your child, you're a stay-at-home mum now, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I think the challenge for me was, so I was a single mum with my daughter, and I think the challenge for me then again was swallowing my pride and being like, I'm a single parent again. Nothing against single parents, because we do it. We've got to do it. But it was that whole, I was angry. I was so angry and hurt by the fact that he had done this to us, and put me in that situation again of having an older child and a newborn baby that had, he had a milk allergy, he was premature, he was always poorly. So I was like fighting all these battles with the children while trying to look after myself and make sure that he was okay. But I was so angry.
Oh,
but I felt relieved that he was in there, and I knew he was in there and he was safe.
Yeah.
So that kind of helped.
So did that kind of all right, you're going through this process, your emotions, these feelings that you're feeling at the moment, which is perfectly okay to feel,
Yeah.
because again, something horrible has happened and you don't know how to cope with it. So with the whole relationship dynamics, then did it start to change as he started to progress in his recovery? I'm sure you were starting to hear or see with your own eyes as well that he was changing.
Yeah, so when he actually went into the Carpenter's Arms, we weren't
Yeah.
actually together,
Okay.
but I was supporting him as because he didn't have anybody else.
Yeah.
He only had his dad, but his dad lives in Swansea.
Yeah.
His dad lives in Swansea. Sorry, the dog's barking.
That's okay.
Sorry, the dog.
That's all right.
You might need to get Luna. So yeah, he didn't have anybody else but me. He
Yeah.
had no support because obviously everything that he'd gone through in the past, people had cut their ties with him. So he only
Yeah.
had his dad, but his dad lived in Swansea. My parents were very much like, I can't do any of this. So he only had me.
Yeah.
So I had to support him for Albie's sake, but we weren't in a relationship until, because I said to him, I'm not even acknowledging it until I've seen change. And that was for quite a while. I think it was up until halfway through phase 2, probably, that we
Yeah.
were like, okay, let's take things slow and just let's see how things go.
Yeah.
Because I had seen
So
a massive change.
yeah. So with your, getting to you, Jen, obviously your coping mechanism now. So how did you kind of take care of yourself through all of this? He's in rehab, you're at home, you're looking after your child, you're angry, but how did you kind of cope through all of that?
I didn't have no support at all. None at
Wow.
all. I knew one lady whose partner was actually in rehab with Ian as well, and I kind of turned to her because she'd been through it before. I would like ring her or voice note her at silly o'clock, like, I'm so angry, I'm so upset. Like, is this normal? She'd be like, it's normal, and she kind of guided me through that, just
Yeah.
as somebody who was in exactly the same position as me that actually knew how I felt, because
Yeah.
there is no support
Mm,
unless you want to sit on a Zoom call with 100 people that you don't know. There is no support for partners out there. You kind of
yeah.
left to your own devices to just pick up the pieces and get on with it.
She sent you that thing though, didn't she? That was it. That Emma Willis dealing with addiction. Matt Willis's wife.
It was on
Yeah.
BBC. There was a TV program
Okay.
about Matt Willis from Busted.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Watch this."
Yeah.
So I actually watched that and I cried all the way through it because everything that she was saying, I was feeling. And that was
Yeah.
kind of like a light bulb moment for me,
Yeah.
just
That's
from a
amazing.
TV
So,
program.
exactly. And you know what? It's just them things they help out. And like you said, there wasn't sort of support out there for yourself. And I was chatting to someone before, and he's got his own company that he runs, and it supports people in a particular area in their life. And sadly, you have to really look to find the
Yeah,
support out there. It's really hard to find it, and especially when you're going through all these emotions and feelings, you just don't want to look anywhere. You just want to kind of sit in them, don't you?
yeah,
um, but then you've met somebody that understands what you're going through, that's advising you and telling you that it's okay, it's normal, all of this process. But having somebody there just to say it's going to be okay, I think is definitely, I'll take from that as a sort of a coping strategy for yourself. You reached out and you've spoken to somebody,
yeah,
and I think that's really important. I always believe in talking about things. It kind of
100%.
takes the power out of it.
And the
Um,
pressure.
yeah, and the pressure as well for yourself. So that's really, really encouraging to hear that,
I,
because there is people that don't know how to cope with it, but if
yeah,
they reach out to somebody, especially with someone that understands this, it really does help.
I think as
So
well, you kind of feel alone, like nobody, like my best friend, for example, she was there, but she didn't understand it because she's not gone through it. So
yeah.
it's all right. They'd be going, just get rid of him. just get rid of him. You know, it'll be much easier, but it's not as easy as that. Like when you love somebody and when you know the person deep down inside that's under that addiction is a good person and that's who you love, it's hard to just turn them away and walk away from that. So talking to people that actually understand how you're feeling and what you're going through, that is so needed.
It is. So looking back at this now, Jen, you know, you've shared the beginning, you shared the love story, it sounds amazing, and then all of a sudden you found out that Ian's doing off-key stuff, things that are not looking right, not looking normal. You found out that he's an addict, and you've gone through this really hard time in your life. Now, looking back at all of that, what advice would you give to someone who's in a relationship with an addict?
I would say you need to protect yourself and you need to have firm boundaries in place for sure and reach out for help. Even if they're in denial about the fact that they're in addiction, meaning the partner, that they're an addict, look out for support. Offer to go with them to meetings, or even getting something printed off the internet to encourage them to go and get help, because it is out there and it can be done.
Yeah.
And just don't let the addiction ruin the relationship, because you can overcome it.
That's amazing, Jen. That's really powerful. So is there, as well, like what misconceptions about addiction and recovery would you like to kind of address? Anything with that? With maybe you said all your friends just said get rid of them or anything like that. Is there any sort of, anything you'd like to address about the word, addiction? Or
I think people think of like addicts as horrible, mean people, when actually it's just something that's taken over their life and they have no other way out, or they can't find another way out. Not everybody that takes drugs or that's in addiction is a bad person. They're not.
Yeah.
They're just using something to cope with their day-to-day life, and it gets out of control, and that wins.
Yeah.
And people need to educate themselves on addiction, because it's horrible. It really is horrible.
Yeah.
And the way it controls somebody. So education on addiction for sure.
Definitely.
And being more
That's really good.
supportive as well.
Yeah, definitely. And look, you've got Ian sitting next to you, handsome, strapping lad, and he's doing so well.
He is doing really well.
When we spoke about what he's doing now, he's doing the referrals, he's actually giving back, and he's given help for other people that were exactly like him. And I think it's just such a powerful thing. And both of your guys' story is going to be a blessing to so many other couples out there. Jen, you are able to let people know that there is hope out there.
There is.
And it's definitely important to let people know that. So Ian's recovery now's journey, how has it influenced your perspective on life and your relationship now? Is it, where he is today, is it really made a big impact on your life now? Are you where you are today?
Massively.
Yeah.
Like we're a team for sure now, aren't we? And we're even better than we were to begin with.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think.
Wow.
Like massively. We're really close.
Yeah, I think we thought we were good in the first, the honeymoon period. I think we've blown that out of the water. Like, we're an actual team. We don't worry about anything anymore. The little things like money used to, obviously,
that was a massive issue.
Money used to worry the hell out of us, because of me. Yet now, don't get me wrong, it's still like, this, that, but it doesn't worry us anymore. We can do what we want, how we want.
We're getting married.
Yeah?
Yeah, we're getting married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're saving for a wedding, and we're paying for it. So, we're both working hard and stuff like that. And we're actually able to do that. Whereas before, we couldn't even save £1 because it'd be gone to his habit.
Yeah.
That is amazing, guys. Congratulations. And thank you so much for sharing that on this show as well. That's amazing. And again, I just love hearing good news. I love hearing this stuff. So you kind of shared a little bit about there, like how you guys are coping now together. Like what do you kind of do to support each other's well-being today? Obviously, it must be very different to what it was before.
Yeah, I mean, we've changed a lot, haven't we? So, obviously with the addiction and things like that, I won't drink around him or anything like that. I wouldn't put him in a situation that would put him at risk. You know, we've changed things we do. We go for coffee now.
Yeah.
That's our thing.
It's like walks and stuff as well.
Yeah, we go for
walks with the kids to the park. Just to most families, that's normal, isn't it? But I think because where I've come from, it's nice to actually finally be able to do that. And for me to have the label of a dad again, a fiance, a stepdad, that's massive for me. Like I've always said, I want to be the best dad. I want to be the best stepdad. I want to be the best partner. And to be able to actually do that now is massive.
We go to church as well every Sunday. That's something that we do, don't we? And that's important for Ian's recovery. So we go to church, and we've got ourselves involved in like a family group there and things like that. And the kids love it. The kids love it. And we're going away, aren't we? We're going for 3 nights away to Poland next week.
Yeah.
Together, just me and him, no kids.
Awesome. That's amazing,
amounts of
guys.
coffee is going to be taken, mate. Copious amounts.
Oh, that's brilliant, guys. And do you know what? There's something about, you know, hearing the craziness of life and what we go through, but then just to realise there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, isn't there?
There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that's why reaching out is important.
Yeah.
Because you have to reach out, you have to take that step.
Yeah. And it's you know, it must have been hard because when you're actually going through it, it's really, really difficult,
It is, and
But
I find you isolate yourself as well because you're ashamed or embarrassed because of the stigma that is on addiction.
Yeah, definitely.
So people are scared to open up or talk to people because of being judged. That's how I felt as well.
Yeah. And do you know what, guys? It's something that I would, you know, very openly share, that addiction's becoming such a big thing now. And that could be in lots of different areas, you know, and we don't know how many people are, you know, going through addiction problems, but there is a lot. I know that for sure.
Yeah, there is. There is.
You know, and it's just great that you guys have been able to come on today and share openly, especially yourself, Jen, of what you've gone through. And it definitely will encourage somebody just to speak up and go and speak to somebody like you did, Jen.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be, you know, an amazing journey you guys are on already now. You guys are getting married. So that's really that sounds like an amazing goal that you're going to, you know, you're going to reach. You're going to get married, going to pay for it yourself. It's massive. You guys are doing massive things, and it really encourages me to keep doing what I'm doing as well, you know. And I always believe if you do the good thing, the next right thing will happen.
Yeah.
And that's what you guys are doing, and it's powerful. So is there anything else that you'd like to share, Jen, with our listeners about, you know, your experience or anything about addiction and recovery in general?
Just to anybody that's going through it with a partner, whether it's a family member, a friend, a mother, or anybody, just don't feel alone. Don't isolate yourself. There is groups out there that you can attend, or, you know, seek help for your partner or your family member or loved one. That, you know, don't put it in a box and just pretend that it's not happening like I did. Get the help, because your health and well-being and mental health is important, because it will affect it.
Yeah. Awesome. Jen and Ian, thank you so much for coming on today and doing this interview. It's been an absolute pleasure. And Jen, I'm so proud of yourself for, you know, sticking by and doing what you've done and getting through what you've got through. There's probably a lot of women out there that have really struggled and they don't know how to do it. So I really hope that there is some women out there that are listening, or even, you know, men out there that have got partners and they don't know how to do, you know, both male and female. Your story will reach to somebody and will be a blessing to someone. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Cheers.